Welcome to Gold Coast Insider, where we bring you business insights, stories, opportunities, and forecasts from movers and shakers across the Gold Coast. I'm your host, Estella Rodiguero. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Gold Coast. My guest today is Patrick Hefferan. He is a key figure at Urbis, where he serves as Planning Director. He has a profound understanding of the complexities within urban planning and development. Patrick emphasises the importance of innovative urban planning solutions and has highlighted the Gold Coast's unique position as a city with major infrastructure commitments such as large-scale commercial developments, universities and hospitals. And he believes that careful planning is critical to managing the forecasted population growth and the associated demands on housing and infrastructure. It is so good to talk to you today, Patrick.
Yeah, Estelle, thanks very much for having us on.
No, you're most welcome. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at what inspired you to get into urban planning, and what is it that you find the most rewarding about your job?
That's a big question. The first part of that I studied economics before planning and thought that was a touch dry for a 19-year-old at the time, and so I had to look around at other options. I wanted to do marketing, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but I filled in my QTAC form. I used to apply to QTAC to change degrees and do that sort of stuff, and I filled it in wrong, and I didn't end up applying for marketing. I applied for town planning by accident. And I didn't really realise until the enrolments came out, and by then it was sort of too late. And look, that was kind of kicking around in the background, and serendipitous as it is, I started and really enjoyed it, and so the rest is kind of history on that. So it's quite accidental that I did get into town planning, but with an economics background, it was a really exciting thing for me to do at the time, and I kept running with it. There's a lot of really rewarding things about it, and particularly for anyone thinking about doing town planning as a qualification or as a career. There's a massive range of things that it's used for. It's used for finance and funds and asset management, transport, law, urban design and architecture. There's a project management. There's a massive range of what planning actually influences and drives. So I've got mates from school that are in funds management with planning qualifications. So it's really it gives a lot of options. And over a long career, we seem to change careers pretty readily these days, but planning is the sort of thing you can keep applying into new spaces instead. And I think it's in particular in a city like the Gold Coast, an exciting qualifications, exciting kind of career to have, because in a lot of ways you're moving with clients into new spaces, into new sectors, into new industries. You are literally helping shape the city and shape the economy, and really try and solve some of the issues the city has got at the moment.
So that leads me into, what are some of the current trends and significant challenges that you've seen in planning today? And it must be significant because we all know what's happening in housing and development. But what are the significant challenges that you see in town planning today, and how do you see them shaping the future of the Gold Coast?
I mean, there's a few very loud trends at the moment in the media, and a few issues, the biggest of which is the housing crisis. And look, without being disrespectful to families who are looking for houses and low income people that are looking for housing and are not catered for, in a lot of ways, it's actually a bit of a symbol and an indicator of some teething problems we've got as a growing city. But it's also in the background a good problem to have. It means people that are local want to live here and want to stay here. It means that people from Brisbane want to share their lifestyle between living in Brisbane and Gold Coast. People in Sydney and Melbourne want to move here. People internationally want to move here. We're a lifestyle with a growing range of economies and sectors, and there's a lot of reason for people to live, work and play here. People are born here to study here and stay here. Housing is a real sector and a real issue for us at the moment. But again, there's a real opportunity, and it's an opportunity for us as a city to be best in class in the things that we do. So we have a real finite land supply. That's not a secret, and construction issues and housing issues aren't isolated to the Gold Coast, but we're very exposed to this. We have a border north and south. We've got the ocean in the east. I've applied. You can't build houses in the ocean. And you can't build them in the rainforest to the west of us. So we really have no space left. So where we have to step up and be better than everybody else is to be more efficient with that land,
right?
And really promoting of non-traditional housing types. It's small lots, and how we actually do that sort of thing. Precincts living. Built to rent, particularly purpose-built student accommodation and mixed-use centres are really what we have to do, and be a bit of a prototype for how others can do it in other places.
So is it about changing our mindset from the old Australia, we must own a house on X amount of land? Is it about that? Is it now that we've got to the stage where it is going to be about townhouses, units and complexes? Is that what we're looking at for the Gold Coast?
In most ways, it's got to be, because we do have a lot of detached housing on the coast, but it's too hard to maintain, and it's too costly in land. Court blocks, 1,000, 1,200, 1,000, even 800 square meter blocks are a thing of the past, because the land's too expensive, and the opportunity to develop for more density has to be considered in order to house the growth of toward 2042, and the growth of population for that. We really need to make sure that we're getting as many people in reasonably and maintaining a amenity lifestyle, but getting as many people in to support and grow our economies as much as possible. We just can't do that with detached housing.
But so the importance must then come on that mixed use precincts as well. What's your thinking around that, and how can they contribute to the community and housing affordability, and do they?
They've got to, and in a couple of ways. One is that we're running out of land, and the large lots that are left are generally commercial and do have their own role there in servicing a neighbourhood. Both council and their city plan and the South East Queensland regional plan that the state government released last year, it both indicate that these large lots have to be used as mixed use, be transport orientated or simply centre areas. And these are areas that really do need to service and provide housing, because they're the available large lots. I think that's actually too a very big demographic response as well, because a lot of people that are on the coast living between the coast and somewhere else. So there's a large amount of people living between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, working from home, Friday, Monday, and living in the suburbs again, back in Brisbane during the week, and working in the CBD. If that's the sort of lifestyle you're looking for, you don't need that house. If you're a semi-empty nester or an empty nester, you don't need a house of land. And that sort of opportunity to live in a large apartment with all of the services, all of the restaurants, bars, and shopping facilities, literally on your doorstep, is going to suit people a lot better moving forward.
And I guess it responds to the issue of the transport, the roads and infrastructure, doesn't it? Because it is becoming more congested on our roads, and our roads have got nowhere else to go, particularly if you're looking straight down the highway, straight down the Pacific, if you're going through surface and everything. There's nothing else we can do about that, is there?
No. Look, state government done a lot of work on the M1, and that's going to continue on for some time. They've got some large plans for the region as a whole. But of course, it's really frustrating in the short term. while they're doing a lot of road work, same as well we're building the light rail. But again, these infrastructure layers are really important for our next steps. We had to stop and say, well, we're a long linear city. Our
Yep.
public transport isn't great, but how we solve that, like other cities that have been successful, is with a mass transit system.
Mm.
And that's got to include cars running us up to Brisbane, but also the heavy rail locations at Hope Island with Pimpama, and also too, running the light rail all the way down to the airport, so that people can run up and down our spines quickly, get out of our transport orientated centres and up to Brisbane or back down to the airport and start commuting in public transport the way most other cities do.
So you must be doing a lot of future visioning, and that must be part of the whole core of of what you're doing, because you need to look to that future. What do you see the future landscape of the Gold Coast? How do you see that evolving in the next I was going to say 5 to 10 years, but we probably should be looking shorter. We should be looking about 2 to 5 years.
We should be looking immediately. You're absolutely right. Because the housing crisis didn't come up in the last 18 months. It's a 20-year problem that's slowly crept up and crept up and crept up. And similarly too,
did it get accentuated? Sorry, did it get accentuated because of COVID though? Was that one of the impacts that actually just quickened the whole process? Because most of us here sit here and go, it wasn't like this before COVID. Before COVID, we were all just sitting pretty. But it seems like since then, you're saying it's a longer term one. Sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely longer term, and again, if you have no change in real change in supply, so you have the same amount of land. Yeah, you might have some more apartments and some more townhouses come online, but there's no new land. The supply is relatively finite, and you have a massive increase of demand like we did at COVID, and that's why it's a bit of a catalyst. Is that people from Sydney, Melbourne, particularly, were looking for get out job for colors to the Gold Coast. And so all of a sudden our price point became pretty relevant. That was a catalyst for it, but it was something that was happening the whole time. Prices for land were creeping up already. We were a bit undervalued, I think. I'm sure we were. But then the only thing left to move is the price. And of course, once the demand from Sydney and Melbourne came, that really jacked the price up, and hence we had a 20 and 25% property price increase, in the year after COVID. Maybe we're undervalued, 6 or 8% anyway, but that's still a massive shift. So that was a catalyst for it, for sure.
Mm. So we were talking about the future, and I was saying 5 to 10 years, but you're saying it's immediate. So how do you see that future landscape evolving now in the next few years?
I think there's in an incubator stage, there's a lot of really exciting things happening.
Okay.
We've got 3 unis, we've got 3 hospitals, and more. We've got another one coming at Coomera. So we're really setting some very heavy infrastructure in education. And I think we need to really promote the education sector, and we do that through exposure to universities internationally. I know there's cap issues there, that could change over time, and support that with real student accommodation solutions, so that we do become a bit of a uni town. We do become a bit of a hotspot for international and regional and Aussie kids from all over the country coming to study here on the Gold Coast.
So can I stop you right there? We go further with that university accommodation, because that has been it has been highlighted, hasn't it? And there are some moves made in that, in the accommodation for students.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, there's been a few approvals lately, and I know CLB, a Griffith University, but Southport had approval for another 500 odd units. But that's absolutely critical. Is that to sell degrees to overseas kids, we need to sell housing, and we need to sell the chance for some lifestyle. And we can do the degree in the lifestyle. We need to give these kids a bed, for the 3 or 4 years that they're going to be here at least.
Yeah.
And so we really need to support the universities and get that sector moving. We're doing some incredible stuff, Craig Rousseau and the Health and Knowledge Precinct there with EDQ are doing some amazing work in having a look at biotech, having a look at medical research, and really moving very quickly in international sort of spaces there, which is really exciting. And out of that too comes sports tech. We're again based on climate and lifestyle. We've got a lot of infrastructure from the Commonwealth Games. We've got a lot of opportunity. I think we really should be getting into sports tourism, sports tech, and those sort of opportunities. New indoor stadiums and boutique outdoor stadiums are the way to move that forward. So have a look at just the things like it's Southport Sharks indoor stadium, health and knowledge precinct. What is some of the industrial stuff with the space guys and for engineers that are running out around Yatla and internationally attractive. Have a look at all of those things that we're doing that are really exciting and really going to set up new sectors and economic bases for us to grow on. And instead of being a tourism sort of town, look at those and really give those the time now. So that over the next 2, 5, and 10 years, they can turn into economies themselves and be a reason why people from Taiwan move to the Gold Coast to work in biotech, or why people from India will come and work in the space engineering and aerospace area, and people from Sydney and Melbourne will come up and live here the lifestyle, and then sending kids to the unis here. So I think we need to be best in class in all of those sectors.
Yeah, and I think almost what we're facing now has been I don't know, a product of our success in some respects. So, those sectors you were talking about, you're talking about Gilmore Space, right? And how they've grown. You've talked about the Gold Coast Health and Knowledge Precinct, but more predominantly the med tech and that biotech industry, which is going to be our fastest growing industry. It's currently worth $300 million a year to us. It will be our fastest growing sector on the Gold Coast, but also our largest sector for employment moving forward. So we are a product of how much we've grown and the incredible and advanced manufacturing and the incredible companies that have came here and are setting up, or what we're doing. So with all that, we have it sort of accentuates the issues, but then you put a different spin on it earlier, and you said, it's also an opportunity.
No, absolutely. All of those are really exciting opportunities that both private industry and government really should be supporting and really getting behind, because while a lot of these right now are issues and constraints, every single one of them is an opportunity for us to prove ourselves and do something better than anywhere else. Why isn't our light rail station? How do we get that to something similar to Portland in Oregon, where and it's shorter, admittedly, but where you're actually getting out of stations into more active spaces and straight into shops and factories and restaurants, that sort of thing. Our HODA, I know council's looking at some next steps there. Should we be taking some things that have been successful from Tacoma or other centres and Hue and Vietnam, taking some of those things, making them our own, and really doing that better than everybody else? I think we're a unique city. And we're just full of incredibly unique opportunities. Yeah.
So now more than ever, urban and town planning must play a pivotal role in the future. And let's not forget environmental sustainability, because whilst ever we've still got this rapid growth, and while ever we have to, look at housing and affordable rental, we still have that environmental sustainability behind it, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that again, with the ocean on one side and the natural hinterlands on the other, is something that we really do have to stay very aware of. And absolutely, and Southeast Queensland Regional Plan from the state government's been pretty fundamental in that space. I think too, there's a lot of opportunities for us to do that. Bruce Mitchell had an industrial park up in Stapleton, and this is going back pushing 20 years. It was the first self-sustainable industrial park in the Southern Hemisphere. And it was actually quite visionary, and included, recycled water, electricity, and it was self-sustaining. So it didn't even and it didn't even connect to sewer or water because you had that all on site. A lot of other opportunities are in there, and I think there's spin-offs from a lot of new sectors. Like built to rent, for example, if you're looking to hang on to that asset for 25 or 30 years, you want that to be as temperature controlled and as cheap to operate, cheap to maintain, cheap to run as possible. And those sort of initiatives are going to have to roll out from a product like that into a build to sell, into all of our apartment building designs moving forward. So look, again, they're things that we can do moving forward. And I think it's a planning responsibility as well as an architecture, engineering, and all the disciplines to be pretty heavily involved in that.
And I agree, Patrick, because from the point of view that every time I speak to anybody, and I totally believe it myself, it's a lifestyle. People come up here for lifestyle. They're moving to the Gold Coast for a lifestyle. So with that lifestyle comes a bit of, with that greenery, it comes with that, that expectation around that environmental sustainability piece as well. But you lightly mentioned, you made mention, I should say, of build to rent. Now that's gaining a lot of traction as far as, conversation. Can you, for a layman, talk to me about build to rent and is that viable? Is that another response that the Gold Coast can have to alleviate any housing pressures?
Oh, it's got to be, and I think it's been very successful in Melbourne, a little bit in Sydney, and a bit now in Brisbane as well. But what build to rent is actually a single owner. It holds the entire building, and for the purposes of renting units out individually, as opposed to selling them off. So this product is really managed and developed by property funds and financial funds. So because they have to hold on to that asset for some time. So it is quite difficult for standard built to sell developers locally, particularly to do that sort of thing. But we have been involved in a couple for international funds, and the benefit of that is a whole range, because they have experience with that product, they have experience, and they have the funding to do that, and as well as that, they see the opportunity in the growth of that sector here on the coast. Why it's really important is there's only a small portion of people who were born and stayed on the Gold Coast, and that's changing over time now. The opportunities and the town's growing, but the number of people that came, myself included, came to the Gold Coast for a work contract or to go to uni or to do something, and they never left. Everybody seems to. We've had a lot of clients that have come from Sydney and Melbourne, come up here, do a couple of jobs, love it up here, bring the wife and kids, and never go back to Sydney or Melbourne. That's happened many times. But I think built to rent is the ideal for that, because it's almost a landing pad for people. You come into the Gold Coast, where do you want to live? You really don't know. So you're sort of in a built to rent apartment for the first year or two, or while you're doing your degree, or while you're working at the university, or while you're working at one of the hospitals. And then if that lifestyle suits you, you move rooms and upgrade your rooms and all that sort of stuff. They've got reward programs and amenity and lifestyle sort of opportunities there as well. But then it ultimately, you may end up moving on, but that's an efficient use of land, and it's really tailor-made to the Gold Coast story. And I think that's something that we will have, and why it will, once construction's available, will be a real success here.
And is there an appetite for, these international and national developers to come here and do build to rent?
There is, and there has been. I mean, UBS owns the Smith Collective up at Gold Coast Health Knowledge Precinct.
Yeah.
Sentinel from America have approval over at Rubina that they're looking to start building now, and that appetite is absolutely here. And we've got a lot of inquiries and things in the pipeline in that space as well. But
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
what we have to be really careful of as a city, it's not all good news, is this is an investment attraction piece. So if you're an international fund, you're looking at Gold Coast as an opportunity and generally as a lifestyle offering, and what can residents in our buildings expect and that sort of thing. And the Gold Coast is going to offer better than anyone in that kind of space. But if you're looking at the financials on that, the uptake of that product is slower here. People don't really necessarily know what it is or what it's supposed to be doing. There isn't many of those around. Those that are up are very successful in Melbourne and here and Brisbane, but it's not like a build-to-sell product where everybody knows what it is. So if you're going to be in Hong Kong or you're going to be in Malaysia or you're going to be in America and you see this as an opportunity, you have to do that as assess that as an opportunity cost with other investment opportunities. So will that actually, work out here given the construction costs, given the land costs at the moment, and giving the ability to even find a builder for the scale that these things need to be at. So right now, it's actually a bit of a difficult task to invite and attract investment into the city. It's just because of those reasons. I think in the medium term, when construction prices are a bit more controlled, then I think that's something that's really going to move forward and very quickly.
And it was something I was going to actually have a sort of mention as well. Whilst all this growth and the planning we have and the mixed dwellings and things like that, we also have then the higher construction costs. We've got increasing interest rates. We've got land prices. That must be adding a lot of pressure. So on one hand, we've got the demand. On the other hand, it must be really hard for the building and the construction industry to be able to, economically build what we require.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's a lot of cranes in the air on the coast. If you look up and down, but these are all legacy. These are all contracts that are 2 or 3 years old, and new ones aren't really springing out of the ground for high rise, particularly. I mean, you can build now up to 4 stories, and that sort of stuff is okay, but it's got to be viable. And when you have, since COVID again, an increase in the property price for the land, an increase in the construction price, the margins for developers are getting squeezed. The margins for builders are already very low, and if those contingencies are volatile, that's a very dangerous place, and hence a few builders have fallen over in recent years. So that's absolutely a dangerous place to be in.
Yeah,
at the moment, absolutely.
But do you see that now? Do you see that ripening itself in the marketplace in the future? What is going to happen? Do you see foretell in that?
It ultimately it has to, and it will. I think reduction in some of the more capital works programs, capital works projects. So you release, they wrap up. Coomera Connect, others in Brisbane, Coomera Hospital, Coogin Hospital. You have local trades, local work gangs all available again. The prices aren't going to drop, but they are going to stabilise and have very much so. But and also it's about availability of labour as well. So and ultimately, again, if the demand continues, the prices are going to get paid. So even if they maintain their prices now, they are going to get paid because people ultimately are going to have to pay for it.
Mm. Do you see from your international buyers or your developers, I guess, and national developers, is that impacting on their decision on the Gold Coast? Is what you're saying? We've got finite land. We have restrictions around what we can and can't build here. Not just from the point of view of the land mass that we have available. And what's actually happening here on the Gold Coast, is that sort of a restriction to investors investing here on the Gold Coast at this stage?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, we've got clients and that we've done a lot of work here for previously that are looking for land and aren't able to find it. So they're looking in northern New South Wales instead, or they're back looking in Brisbane again. So that is, we are missing out on those opportunities. A lot of things aren't particularly stable.
Yeah. And they're probably they're also competing with business, industry and organisations who are growing rapidly here on the Gold Coast and want that land for future development of their own industry, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Competing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's probably the case too for larger centres, and larger commercial centres because while the population's growing, it's very difficult to expand those larger retail centres. There's questions about what large format retail is going to look like in the future, but as well, there isn't necessarily an immediate reason to act, and therefore not an immediate reason to offload excess land or develop excess land for the time being until things do stabilise. So no, that's absolutely the case.
Yeah. Um, you you mentioned earlier the Olympics, and I just want to bring that back into play. I think the opportunities that can be presented for the 2032 Olympics, there's quite a few opportunities. What do you see them being specifically for the Gold Coast?
Look, we've already had a very successful Commonwealth Games here, and so a lot of that infrastructure is already in place. And as mentioned before, there's a lot of other infrastructure and a lot of other sectors that are going to continue growing and be able to service that. Brisbane has 2032 games, but in recent years, it's been away from a single city, and it's really been a region. Between a few cities. There's no way that Brisbane's going to have the surfing event. That should be near a Snapper or a Burleigh or something. But for example, but also too, we've got a lot of opportunity to service that and to how it service different events, but also to house a lot of short-term athletes, villages, and that sort of thing. And that was something that drove the Smith Collective at the time. And that's certainly something that we could utilise as a legacy piece again in next steps forward for us. That could be a catalyst of a few private-public joint venture partnerships in order to get precincts up and running that maybe independently neither could just at the moment. That's where the success of and the excitement about 2032 comes from, for sure.
And I guess the spotlight on the Gold Coast, and I guess a lot we're talking about the we're talking the community, but we're also got to talk about the business community as well. And I think that spotlight on the Gold Coast will be would be fantastic, really. And it also enhance, hopefully we've seen it through the Commonwealth Games, but with the 2032 Olympics, a legacy could be enhanced connectivity, about that infrastructure, about that community vibrancy that comes to the Gold Coast, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's also too an appreciation for what the Gold Coast is now, as opposed to when the Commonwealth Games were on a few years ago, as opposed to what people have in mind from years ago. There is the infrastructure rollout, and that's really, but there's also too a lot of business opportunities that will come out of that in the short term, but then demonstrate that this is already happening on the coast and again start attracting more business as a multiplier from that. Absolutely.
So you've lived here on the Gold Coast for quite some time, and you're obviously very passionate about it. And we're quite lucky because it's really it really will take, from what I've heard from you speaking, a very planned, a very conscious, planned, strategic vision that will take the next few years ahead for the Gold Coast and will make a big difference to what happens on the Gold Coast as far as that whole growth and affordability, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to have to be an approach that everybody's involved in and everybody sees their responsibility in. Yeah, EDIA and Property Council here on the coast have been very active in that. Look, the state government, the Gold Coast Council are really understanding their responsibility in that space as well, and really starting to facilitate private opportunities as well. But it's absolutely something that you need, like I said before, you need a range of disciplines to get right, and you need a lot of strategic partnerships to make sure we can actually deliver that sort of thing. And that's why urban planning, and then from your initial questions, is sort of an exciting space at the moment, because and particularly in our office at Aventus, you need a multidisciplinary approach to really get this stuff right. You need to have a look at this, not just in what it looks like in the urban design, the permeability and the connectivity at a pedestrian level. You need the economics of what this is doing at a street and a block and a precinct and a sector at the citywide, and then an international level. And you need to look at that with the partnerships with state and council, and private enterprise. You need to be able to bring that IP and those experiences and build to rent from other clients in other states and other countries, and bring those into the city and see where they work here. So you really need to get everybody on board.
Patrick, what I hear a lot, and like everyone hears a lot of, is that we've got people facing homelessness. We've got people living in cars because of, they can't afford the rents that are going up. What is the solution? What's the short-term solution? Is there a short-term? Well, there's got to be a short-term solution, but what is it? What can help?
There's a couple of things. That short term, this is a long term problem.
Yeah.
Right. A short term, we can't keep doing the same things and expect a different result. We need immediately leverage and incentivization for development, for affordable housing, for community housing, for built to rent, for purpose-built student accommodation, for those four, and room accommodation and other bits as well, sort of in that space. Reason being, if you want to do something quickly, the market it is able to provide this, but it only will provide it where it pays. That's why, like I said before, large property price, large construction. That's why we have luxury accommodation here on the coast, because that's where the margin is. You take that margin out, you're still left with an expensive piece of land. You're still left with expensive construction. So the only things that will make a difference are infrastructure charges, federal and state funding to offset construction, and federal and state funding to offset infrastructure charges and development timeframe, processing timeframes. So that's what we need to do. I think immediately there are approvals out there that haven't been acted on. There are opportunities for council and state and industry. I'm certainly not pointing any fingers for one party to be responsible, but can joint venture in setting these up quickly. I think the current minister's done a very good job in highlighting those issues, and highlighting some ways of moving forward. But again, to be frank about that, the industry has the know-how, has the experience, has a lot of the time the finances to do that. So it does need the state and council facilitation, but then needs to grab a hold of the reins and make that happen. I think so. In the short term, we need some very strong incentivization is number one. In the medium term, we need to have a look at being more efficient with land. And how do we do that? It's through built to rent. It's through other non-traditional housing types. But as well as that too, in our town planning, in our city plan, we need to have a look at genuine housing affordability and how do we provide that. The number of apartments that haven't been acted on is largely because of cost of construction. And a big part of that here is car parking. It's multiple basements, is increased height. If you had lower car parking rates, and again, this is linked, and you need a public service, public transport system to support this. But lower car parking rates means less basements, means far less construction costs in piling and dewatering and all sorts of things in physically building those. You start getting those lower, and that will bring a lot of buildings out of the ground. We've had a look at a lot of approvals that we've obtained ourselves over the last few years, and any that aren't viable, many people are coming back and looking at options to make that work. If you're going to do that, and you're going to be providing some housing at a range of housing price points, you need to provide opportunities in a city plan level and a design level to increase yields in the right location, so that can pay and that can ultimately put some roofs over some families' heads. Absolutely. And then longer term, that sort of thing can't go on forever, or it will undermine pricing of some of the luxury stuff that we have provided, and quite rightfully so. But over longer term, some of those development parameters, and through both the planning regulations from state government, but also the planning scheme at council, both of those can have very clear mandates and very clear design parameters for things that are for affordable housing. Introducing 20% in a development, that is fraught with a bit of danger, because it can turn people off from paying top dollar if they know there's affordable housing in the same building. But that's not necessarily always the case. Absolutely. But those sort of opportunities for entire community housing or affordable housing developments can absolutely be there. And I think that's got to be our focus, to keep a perpetual opportunity for the market to provide this, rather than government to be providing this on an ad hoc, knee jerk and probably far too late kind of basis.
So essentially, it is going to be about all levels of government and industry getting together to work on those solutions and to activate. Absolutely. Yeah.
And have a look at what real amenity and real design in some more dense cities are. In my opinion, it's okay for South Paradise, and it's okay for Southport as our CBD to have small setbacks, bigger yields, bigger densities, higher heights. With less amenity. These are core areas, and these are our high density areas that we do need to have. Yeah. And if we're going to have, this comes back to your environmental question from before, but if we're going to maintain the line to the west and protect the riparian corridors and the rainforest corridors to our west, we need to be a lot more efficient. We need to have high density in the right locations in the actual city. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, great advice. All right, so I'm going to change, and it's been great talking to you, but I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give someone starting their career in town planning?
Look, buy a lot of whiskey. But I think it's a really exciting career, and like I said before, there's a lot of options there. And a lot of opportunities for you to pivot through your career. If you're more interested in the urban design or the economics, or the transport, or the there's a whole range of things you can do with that. But one thing I sort of would recommend is, as quickly as possible, you get into multidisciplinary space. Town planners and doing development application work is really fantastic and is really important. But the more you're looking at that with a range of lenses,
Mm.
The better and the quicker you'll progress in your career, I think. It's I'm very fortunate with the team we have at this, because if I'm next to an economist, I can talk to them or just hear what they're doing and what they're saying, and their influence on my project is. And similarly with urban design, evaluation, and transport engineering. And there's other companies that do this as well. And the more exposure you can get to those project teams that aren't just in town planning,
Yep.
I think the more rounded you are as a planner earlier on in your career. Yeah.
I didn't realize that that planning had so many different sectors to it that you can go off in. I just ballparked the whole thing. So it's been really interesting to find that, you can go off in different fields of planning as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it's funny to see what that one qualification can actually lead to over 20 years. Absolutely.
So you live on the Gold Coast, you call it home. What is
Yes.
it about the Gold Coast that keeps you here and keeps you passionate? You're obviously very passionate about our Gold Coast. What is it?
I mean, I came down here for a contract, and then met a blonde lady, had 3 kids, never left.
That'll do
A
it.
couple of mortgages, a couple of dogs later, and that's it. So, but you can't. It's very rare that you can live here on 3.5 acres, 5 minutes from the beach. Like it just does not happen. The thing, and Tom Tater, I think Tom's fantastic for saying this publicly and repeatedly, but our responsibility right now is to say, well, over the next, I want somewhere for my kids to live, and I want somewhere for my kids to study, and I want somewhere for my kids to work, and more, that's all happening here in the Gold Coast. Yeah. 20 years ago, probably wasn't. 15 years ago, maybe it wasn't. But it certainly is now. It certainly is in the future. And it's going to be a really exciting sort of place. So there is growth in Brisbane, there's growth in Northern New South Wales, there's growth in Sydney and Melbourne. But what's happening here is really, really exciting. And you just can't get past the lifestyle. 24-degree Gold Coast winter days is pretty hard to pass up. And you do not get that in Sydney and Melbourne, I'll tell you that. But that's why it wasn't home, but it's definitely been home to me for now 18, 19 years. And it's going to be a home for the foreseeable future. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, this has now become a place where kids can go to school, go to university, and actually get incredible jobs. I mean, you've got Gilmore Space Technology, and here right on the Gold Coast, you have amazing industries on the Gold Coast with. So no longer do they have to leave the Gold Coast to gain that experience.
That's right, and specialist stuff too.
Yeah.
I mean, with 3 unis, there's a whole range of academic employment and academic study opportunities. With large scale hospitals, not just regional hospitals, large scale hospitals and research and biotech, and also we're taking next steps that'll continue growing both sectors and opportunities and employment stuff. I mean, my kids are going to be in jobs that don't even exist yet, and I'm hoping that they come out of innovation and the entrepreneur kind of spirit that Gold Coast has always provided, and I think that's only becoming more and more real.
It is. It's exciting. It's exciting to be on the Gold Coast. Thank you so much for today. It's been excellent. It's really interesting to hear what our long-term vision is for the Gold Coast and how we can evolve into being the place where people can get jobs, but also can get really good affordable accommodation. I think everyone's aiming for that, but at least we've got, plans. You have plans, you have people, and you have plans that can help make that happen.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
No, that's great, Estelle. Thanks very much for having me.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for listening today. For a complete list of podcast episodes and transcripts, go to rdagoldcoast.com.au. australia.org.au/podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter.